Good evening. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting. It's Monday, August 14th of 2023. We do have a quorum and we're in compliance with certification with open meeting laws. And the first item of business is to approve the Plan Commission meeting minutes from July 10th of 2023. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Take your pick.
Motion by Caravello, second by Bradford. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is a City Council representative report. Alderperson Caravello.
Yes, thank you. It looks like at the July 25th council meeting, R119, 120, and 121 were all passed, and at the August 8th council meeting, Ordinance 23 and Ordinance 25 were both passed.
All right. Any questions about any of that? Hearing none. Next item would be staff report. Michael, did you want to give the staff report, or? Sure. I have it on the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in your packet is the list of current status of developments, and you'll note that so far we've issued 33 permits for single family and 13 for two family. And anybody have any questions? I can certainly try to help.
All right, no questions. That would take us to item number 7, which is TID number 6, Project Plan and Territory Amendment. And let me just pull that up. And how would you like to start this out, Michael? I know we have some guests here, so we have Gary Becker and we have Dave Ferris here.
Yeah, maybe we want to just have Gary.
All right, who wants to walk us through this?
Lead us through that.
Gary or Dave, or you want to tag team it?
I'd be happy to let Gary, but I think he wants me to, so.
Oh, is that what that shove in the back was all about?
Button I have to hit here? Is that good? Okay.
Yep, you're good. And then if I have what was in the packet on the screen, if you want me to advance, just give
I
me
will
the
do
word.
that. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through the big document. When we come back for the public hearing, I'm going to have a shorter version with a PowerPoint kind of a thing, so that we don't have to go through the whole document at that point. Plus, you'll have heard it from me tonight, as well as some lead up to this through Gary and staff. If you go on to page 3, so right after the table of contents. So this district was created in 2015 with about 35 acres. The annexation, or the land that was annexed for the Emmy Roth land, was about 19 or 20 acres. That acreage is really adding on to your industrial park to continue to have that growth out there, and also provide some employment opportunities. We'll talk a little bit more about the project costs. Actually, I think Gary said that he's gone through the project costs with you. But on page 24, when we get to there, we'll actually talk, we'll show you what that schedule looks like. As far as the incremental valuation on the bottom, the number we're using based on some numbers that our consultant at Ellers that usually does a pro forma review, he gave us a number of about $29 million that'll come from this construction of their headquarters. Going on to the next page. This district has the ability to stay open for 20 years. We'll see a cash flow later on that only really shows their phase 1. There's some other projects that will be ongoing in this park, plus I think the city plans on growing this some more. So the cash flow show that it closes quicker than that, but there's future development that may keep this open longer. So as far as the but-for test, and if you've heard anything about a TIF district, the but-for is pretty much the most important test that the Joint Review Board needs to know. I know that the City Council here is really like to have the studies done ahead of time to make sure the but-for is something that really is nailed down, so when you take it to council that it's something you feel comfortable about. Really, I think the best thing that I can do for you is to take you back to what really shows why the but-for is satisfied in this. Mayor, could you take me back to page 30 and 31 of the document? Yeah, they're the cash flow statements. I'm jumping ahead, but it really kind of puts an exclamation point on what this development can do for this park. So on page 30 is really before the TIF district has an amendment, and as you can see in this printout, you know, the cumulative column, which is basically the third column from the right, is red basically all the way until the end of the district. There's a brown section where we were talking in the past, where, you know, when I did the financial management plan review with Jamin, that we were probably going to have to extend this district to actually recover it. And as you can tell, that 3-year extension does really nothing as far as making this district successful. So on the flip side, when you add that 29 million on page 31, it will show you that this project really does a lot to help us to obtain the objectives that this district has always wanted to do. Can you go one more page? Or is this, yeah, that's it. So the objectives of this, obviously we want to have growth, we want to close the district successfully, and this project that has come in has really given the city the ability to get to those objectives and keep going with the district or with the industrial park to have a successful district and some growth that's healthy for the city. So that's really what I wanted to bring to you as far as the but-for test. I think that in itself shows you why this kind of growth is necessary for the district and really helps the district become successful and get to the objectives that you approved back in 2015. Under the economic benefits, what we're hoping and will happen from this development is we'll have more employees. That'll bring in obviously people that will need housing, and so it'll trigger some growth opportunities within the city itself. And really, when we talk to the Joint Review Board, if the but-for test is satisfied in their mind and we have things that are added employment or value, really that third item that's on this page 4 is saying that if they agree with those first two statements, that they are actually going to sign on and be a partner with the city and approve this district going forward so that you can have a successful development. One of the things on page 5, I'll have to let you catch up, don't I? I won't jump like that again, Mayor. Don't worry. It's such a clear picture of why this annexation to the district is beneficial. Yeah, page 4 or page 5, top of there. Yep. Sorry. Page 5, top of it. I was looking at number 4 at the top of page 5. That's what messed me up. So one of the findings we have to have on this district is 50% of the area of the district has to be suitable and zoned for industrial. So as you're going through and making zoning changes, you want to make sure that at least 50% remains industrial. I think this adds a PUD, and I don't know if that changes the industrial zoning, but as long as we have 50% of the district, we should be good. And then the only other thing on this page is that because we annexed the land from the town of Pleasant Prairie, we do have to pay them for taxes, what they had for taxes the last couple of years or the last year for the next 5 years. So the amount of the tax bill last year is really what we'll pay over the next 5 years back to them for this annexation. Going through the maps that you have on page 7, you can see the picture of the annexation or the amendment, and that's that more brownish type area where the M.E. Roth headquarters and warehouse are going to be, or are. And then you can see below is where the existing district is that was approved back in 2015. Just showing the zoning on page 10. You have the big purple area, and that's all industrial. And that more pinkish area is the planned development zoning. As long as we have 50% of the district in industrial, we're safe there. We have, this is really a one parcel TIF, so on page 11 you'll see that we're bringing in ag land. It doesn't have much value, doesn't really add a lot as far as the base value of the district, and we'll show you how that's calculated. And then we provided you really a summary of what the parcels are within the district and how much we have for acreage, which is 55 acres after we get done with the amendment. Page 12 is where we determine whether you're capable of actually doing any more TIF additions or amendments, and this needs to be updated for some of the new DOR values, but right now you're at 4.67% of your equalized value is in TIFs, and you can be up to 12%, so we have plenty of room if there's other TIFs that need to be considered in the future. So we'll update that for the final. Then really from there on, there's a bunch of wording that kind of talks about the kinds of projects that you can undertake. It really is more boilerplate, but there are a little bit of additions in here because we are doing a project, a rail spur project that is actually outside the district. And so we kind of talk about that addition on page 18. One of the projects is about a $900,000 project to install a rail spur. Staff has estimated about $180,000 of that will benefit the district, so that's in your project plan as far as a cost. Otherwise, a few more maps as far as where we're going to be as far as zoning and usage. Really isn't changed a whole lot from what we showed you before. Page 22 is really where the projects are listed out as far as on the map. The orange area, which is the amendment area, is the kind of costs that may be involved there are development costs and the development incentives that the developer will submit a request for. And then you can't really see it, but down a little bit in the bottom is the rail spur that I just talked about. And that's, like I said, that's a little bit outside of, it's not on the page 23 half-mile rule or half-mile graph, but if we could put that, superimpose that on there, you could really see that that's still within that half-mile, so that's a legitimate TIF cost. Page 24 has that list of projects that Gary has presented to you at a past meeting. We'll be happy to answer any questions on those. Do you have any since he presented that? But I'll just keep going so that we can get through it. Okay, let's see. So I'll just go right to the tables. I think that's easier to do. So we have to do, because it's an amendment, we have to do a kind of a before and after look. On page 26 is really where was our development assumptions, what kind of development had we already taken in with the old district or with the existing district, and that's about 8.2 million. The next page shows you where we're adding in about $29 million of the Emmy Roth Phase 1 that will add to the value of the district and help us recruit or recover some of that increment that we need to have the district whole. Page 28 is the increment revenue calculation and really just takes the value times the tax rate and gets you the increment that you see in the right corner or right side of the report where it's orange. That total about 2.4 million if we do nothing as far as new development. And so the next page kind of shows you how that actually comes to, that 29 million really comes in. So instead of holding at about 140 some $1,000 of increment each year, this development actually will get you up to about 620,000 or so. A little bit of inflationary amounts are getting added to that every year, but you know, it's quite a jump as far as the revenue you have to be able to do your projects. We've already talked about the cash flows on page 30 and 31, so I won't go through that. Except on 31, I will, you know, like we talked about that, you know, we didn't have really a way to show you where the closure would happen at a certain date. And so when you see that extra, you know, instead of being at 140,000, having $600,000 of increment, you know, really, you know, we actually get healthy pretty quickly. There are a couple projects that are listed that are TBD. We don't have them slated in a specific spot because there isn't a development agreement with the developer, and so we weren't sure where to structure that in. Also at that time there'll probably be some pro forma review just to make sure what that gap is and determine what those incentives will be. So those kind of things being unknown, we didn't want to plot them in here, but you can tell that the district is going to do quite well, and up through 2029, it's paying back advances from the general fund, and then has money to use towards other projects within the district. Otherwise, there's a few more required sections in here that, when you look at the resolution, when the Planning Commission takes a look at this on the public hearing night, these things are in that resolution and have to be called out. The annexation we talked about a little bit earlier. Yeah, so the rest of those are really just required wording that has to be in the project plan. And then the last page of that part is page 34. Talks about the non-project costs. Once again, that rail spur is in there because of that $900,000 project. $720,000 is not a project cost to here, so we have to list that in here. So we're calling that out there. Once we're finalized with the project plan, hopefully before we'll have a copy that'll be on your City Hall desk on August 29th when that first notice gets published in the paper. When we come to the Planning Commission, we're going to want to have a document that has the legal opinion, because when you approve that resolution or consider that resolution that night, it says that the legal opinion is in here. So this will be replaced on 35 with a real one. And then just for another thing that has to be in a project plan is we have to kind of show the taxes that are being collected by the district that are really related to those other taxing districts. And really that's what the Joint Review Board, when they say that they agree the but-for is there and that the value and the employment is worth having and worth being a partner with the city, these are the taxes that they're foregoing to be able to have this district have this amendment. So that's kind of a quick and dirty explanation of the project plan, and I'm happy to go into a little more detail. I know I went fairly quickly there, so.
All right, thank you, David. Any questions?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
the non-project cost for the rail spur, 900,000 estimated, will the city own that, or will the city own it and maintain it, or does that go to the railroad?
I don't know if that's been determined yet. Our consultant, Gary Becker, has been working on this, and we've had some conversations with the users in the park, and maybe you can just give an update.
Yeah, so Wisconsin Southern notified the city that after they inspected the tracks out there, they found them to be unsafe and needing of maintenance. And so then they came out, they did a further inspection, they wrote up an estimate of what it would cost to make the improvements that they thought was necessary. And that's the $900,000. They also identified a DOT grant that could cover the $790,000. So that's the difference between the DOT grant and what the city's share would be is what's included in the project plan. Now there's really only one major user of those tracks, and we went out and met with them. They do rely on the tracks and they want to keep them in operation. One of the issues out there is that the tracks were owned and developed by the Stoughton Industrial Development Corporation or company, I'm not sure what it was called, which is no longer in existence. And so that the ownership of the tracks and who will be responsible for continued maintenance is still an issue that needs to be addressed. We're hoping that it could be, the users take control of that, but we have to work through that as we go through this process.
And we believe, regardless, we need to get the tracks up to the standard in order for them to continue to operate safely. So our focus has been on that as we engage in these conversations, and we have, identified the main user, and I imagine we'll be having some follow-up conversations with them. Yeah, I know the city doesn't want to be in the railroad business. Right. Yeah, that's for sure. Did you have any follow-ups or anything else, Commissioner Farrell? Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? So where do we go from here?
So, like I said, we have a couple changes to make as far as some of the numbers in here because of the DOR numbers coming in recently. We have a couple map changes that we're going to swap out some maps we'll want to get everything put together, because on the 29th is when that first public notice will go in the paper. And the notice says that we'll have a document for public inspection on the desk and on the website as well. So that's really our first step in this process. Second step will be another notice will be the following week. And then the following week after that is when the Joint Review Board, which I believe is 2 o'clock on the 11th, will meet. And I think from what I understand, you're also having your annual Joint Review Board meeting that day. So if any of the council members want to hear how the rest of the TIF districts are going, the staff will have that available as well as going through the process of talking to the Joint Review Board about their duties and what this amendment is about. Then that night, I think 6 or 6:30, we come to you and do the public hearing part of this. And once that's done, you'll have a chance to consider the resolution, which basically is a recommendation to the City Council to create the district. Once it goes to the City Council, which is, I believe, September 26th, that's the day that the district would actually have the date it would actually be created. Even though the Joint Review Board has one more kick at the can, because they have to say whether or not the but-for has been proven. That is the date that usually the district is actually dated. We'll meet back with the Joint Review Board probably within about 2 weeks and have them consider this as far as approving it in final, and then all the information goes into the Department of Revenue by, I think, October 31st, so that we have this all done and put to bed so that the district is ready to go for that next year's value.
Any questions about the process or the timetable? All right, I think your work is completed.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move to item number 8, which is the rezoning and certified survey map for lots 1, 2, and 3 and outlot 1 in the southeast corner of Highway 51 and B. And I'll pull that up here. All right, so this one we're going to have a need for a public hearing, but before we go into that, maybe we can just kind of review where we're at this. There's a staff letter in the packet from Rodney, and this is an item that I think we talked about in the past and will ultimately be to the City Council. There's going to be an ordinance change to require this rezoning, which would go through as a recommendation from the Plan Commission and then have 2 readings for approval at the City Council. And is there somebody here that wants to present or anything you want to add, Michael?
I just note that the survey will actually come next month. So this is, you can see lot 1 here is scheduled for planned office, which is where the Stoughton Trailer headquarters would be. And then there's some institutional around there for park and open space. And then the rest is just held in rural holding at this time. So I don't know if Steve Tremlett's on, if he wants to talk any more about it, but it's essentially for the Stoughton Trailers headquarters.
And we do have representatives from Stoughton Trailers here as well. Does anybody want to speak to it, or should we open it up for public hearing? Looks like Danielle Thompson is here. Anything you want to add, Danielle?
I really don't have a lot to add tonight because the bulk of it will be discussed with the survey next month. I know Steve is planning to do that and had been in conversations with Rodney, so there isn't a lot of information to discuss tonight, but we're happy to do that more at the September meeting. So I guess what you see right now is just the basic planning and getting the zoning started for the headquarter parcel, and then the platting portion will come later this year.
All right, thank you. And I think City Attorney Dragney is zooming in as well if we have any questions on the process or anything from him regarding this and a couple other matters. Are there any questions from commissioners before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting, reopen for the public hearing. Nobody is signed up. Is anybody here wish to speak at the public hearing on this matter? Hearing none, close the public hearing, reopen for our regular business. So what we're looking for a motion to move this ordinance on to the city council, and I would entertain a motion to do so. Motion by Bradford, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Schumacher. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. All right. Next item, number 9, is the general development plan for 211 South Water Street. And this one here, I think most of you are familiar with this one. It's been here a couple times. There's a staff letter in here from Rodney that kind of summarizes the general development plan. So we're looking to rezone it from central business to planned development. And there is a public hearing notice on this one as well. Anything you want to add, Michael, before we go into the public hearing?
Yeah, I guess the whole intent behind the planned development is really to for some flexibility for the 24-foot commercial space requirement on the main floor. And I think the intent originally was to just not lose storefronts downtown along the main corridor, not necessarily off the main corridor. In 2016, an adjacent property owner, the Erickson building, where there was a dentist office, he had some vacancy on the main floor for almost 2 years. And we ended up approving a variance to allow him to have residential on the main floor next door to this building. So that was 2 additional residential units on the main floor there. So I think that's just the intent, is to eliminate the need for commercial space on the main floor, because it's probably going to be difficult to fill that space anyway.
All right, thank you. And I know the applicants are here. They have a presentation. We can either do it before or after the public hearing. I guess it's up to you guys on how you'd like to do that. Sometimes the questions that might come up during public hearing are covered by the presentation. So, do you have a preference? You're all jumping out of your chairs.
Mayor, why don't you do the presentation first, and then
Okay.
that way the public can maybe formulate different questions based on that presentation.
All right, we'll see if I can pull up the correct one here. That's not what I want. Somebody's calling the judge. And did the applicants want to come up and present? All right, I'm just looking for the, yeah, I think
It's just farther down.
oh, it's on that same document.
Yeah, it's in the packet. Yeah.
All right, where do you want to start?
I don't know if Justin needs it.
I don't think we need it.
Okay.
So, good evening, council. Thanks for having me again here tonight. Dustin has joined us through Zoom. I've got Joe Hare, who is our project manager from KSW, to help answer any questions. We've been through this presentation, I think, a few times with you guys, so I don't know that we need to run through the entire thing again, but we're happy to take any questions you may have on that. Dustin and I are still very excited and working hard on this project. We think it's a unique opportunity that can add a lot of value to downtown and our local community. We've continued to do research and discuss with the city officials here on how we can make this work, and we're excited to work with you guys to see how we can make this work as well. We have talked to several local business owners and community members over the past month or more. that have provided a number of testimonials, which we have here tonight for you guys as well, if you have not seen those. We've also been working with the city to come up with solutions, any kind of solutions that we can think of to help solve the parking issues that seem to be coming up here in our last couple meetings. So with that said, I think we had a new little narrative for you guys, if that got in there, Mike. I'm not sure if it was the most recent one or not. Regardless, Dustin, if you're with us, if you want to kind of explain our new option for parking that we discussed with the city.
Yeah, Justin, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, as Justin mentioned, we've met with city officials numerous times to try to brainstorm some ideas around the parking concerns that some commissioners have laid out in the first couple of meetings. And we believe we found a really good solution in a long-term parking lease. The parking lease would provide a few things. One would be compensation to the city for our tenants' use of the lot that the tenants would likely be using anyways. It provides a recorded document to dictate use, monitoring, and oversight. And after hearing the concerns of the commission, our idea would be to limit the designated parking stalls for our project to not include weekday business hours. This would provide efficiency to maximize use of the lot while still allowing for full public use during the busiest of hours. And finally, for us, it provides comfort that the use of the lot for our tenants will be there in the long term and provide our tenants overnight parking near their residence, which was really kind of a big thing for us. So happy to field any questions on that, but we felt really good about that, kind of answering some of the concerns that were brought up and coming to an amendable solution for the city and us as developers.
All right, thanks for that. And we did have some internal conversations today, and I went down on site and got rained on, but I looked around a little bit, and we do think there's some opportunities. Typically, the parking ordinances go through public safety, and then ultimately the city council. So we talked a little bit about whether there was really anything in the ordinances that relates to the rezoning, and I guess the answer is there's not.
Yeah, the central business does not require parking for any uses downtown.
So we would anticipate that if we're going to enter into an arrangement on the parking, that we would do that through the public safety and then ultimately through the city council. So we're here tonight to talk about the general development plan, and then there is a public hearing stated for that. But we think that, after talking internally with not only Michael, but with Police Chief Jenks and Public Works Director Aber, that, some of the challenges can probably be averted rather easily. It really doesn't change a whole lot. We might even look at some of the street parking arrangements that we currently have and do a more comprehensive approach to our downtown parking while we're at it. So that's kind of a staff update, if you would, as well as what you heard from the applicants. So did you have any questions about anything before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none, we would close our regular meeting and then reopen the public hearing. I do have one person signed up to speak, and that would be Ingrid McMasters. Are you still game? Yeah. All right, come on up. The red light is on, which means the microphone is hot. You might need to adjust it a little bit, but thank you for being here. You get 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I am Ingrid McMasters, owner of 168 West Main Street, which is currently my business and my residence, and they are separate properties as far as ownership goes, but they're both mine. So we share an alley with the area, and we use the public parking in the back, as do most of the residents that live above the buildings upstairs in that block. So we are concerned about the leasing of the spaces and how that does affect the rest of the residential people in that area. Are we talking about a new residential permit? Are we talking about other people being able to have spaces that live there too? How does that work? And do I need to buy into that as well? So I as a business owner who needs that parking and alley access and making sure that we maintain the alley access, because we do use both doors, I'm very concerned about how that alley is used and how the parking dominoes into the rest of the residents of the area. As far as the building itself and its plan, I am pro getting it nicer. I am pro having it be affordable housing. We do absolutely need that. I am highly concerned about the density. I don't know that we have that kind of density here in town with that quantity, so I'm a little concerned about that when it comes to not only the parking, but a garbage plan. I haven't seen exactly how they might deal with garbage. Where are the dumpsters? How are they getting access? Does that affect parking? Because the way that I count it, if you have access to both of the beds as they're shown, both sides of the bed as they're shown in the plan, we could have up to 30 people in that unit, in that building, which is kind of dense. And I realize that's the hyper extension of how many, but it could be a lot. So I want to understand how the garbage is working, and from a personal level, would like to know about the staging and construction in the alley and how that affects my building. And I'm the only one with exterior amenities, meaning I have a deck outside back, and I will suffer some consequences of the construction, which is anticipated. But I just want to understand as an owner how that's going to work. Also, the plan had talked about bike parking. I don't see bike parking. And also, as far as outdoor space, there are other higher density, no outdoor space apartment buildings like the fire station, the former fire station downtown. And the people do need outside access. You often will see them out there near or on the sidewalk with grills, hanging out with their lawn chairs, not in the property. So I'm concerned about how that works moving forward. Also, the way that garbage is picked up for me, we roll down to Water Street right now, and we park the cans, as we've been told, in front of this property.
She's one of the obstructors. Yeah.
So I just want to understand how garbage pickup affects us on the alley who roll down to the end of the road. That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing? Come on up, and we're going to need your name and address for our records.
Sure. Hi, my name is Amber Cedarstrom. My address is 724 South Page Street. I don't have a whole ton to say except that I'm in support of this. I think that we need more housing. Dane County needs more housing. Stoughton needs more housing, especially as we develop more businesses, hopefully. And encouraging more people to live downtown will hopefully help more businesses come downtown, which would be great. I'm fully in favor of development that, as the previous speaker said, would grant some affordable housing that would revitalize a building and maintain some of the historic character, especially. I really hope that the sticking points at the parking and so forth can be worked out, because I'd hate to see buildings just kind of crumble into decrepit disuse rather than be improved. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Oh, we have one more. Hello.
I'm Joe Hare with KSW Construction. I would be the project manager handling this project. I've been on site multiple times. Far as the garbage collection, currently right now there are 2 dumpsters, if I recall, right in the space that is, or behind the building, that is not in the alley, and our intent would be to build a dumpster enclosure with whatever materials are approved by the city. Most likely it would be, some type of wood or a decorative metal that you couldn't see any of it. As far as the construction, there would be no job site trailer. The dumpster, same thing for construction, would be placed right behind the existing building where there's no parking, and we would have a construction fence that is screened to prevent any of anything blowing around, or you wouldn't see it. As far as the construction in the alley, all that is being done is we'll be replacing, forgive me, I don't know the exact count of the windows, but we'll be replacing the windows for better weather efficiencies, removing the existing ephes, and then power washing it and sealing it and bringing back the original luster of the brick. So will there be a few days of maybe potential inconvenience, when things are happening? Of course, but we will work around all the requirements for scheduling and timing and concerns that anybody involved and neighbors may have, and it would be cleaned up each day at the end, before work, or excuse me, after work is completed, and then before work, we just make sure everything's proper and safe and all that. And, if something needs to be done at an early time in the day or a later time in the day, we're willing to work around whatever requirements that anybody has.
All right.
Is there any other concerns as far as construction, means and methods, or procedures?
We'll have them ask questions after the public hearing if
Okay.
they have any.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and then reopen for our business. So what we have is a general development plan. We're looking for a recommendation to the city council, and I'll pull it up here. So in the packet, there's an ordinance for this one. Are there any questions at this point? We have developers, we have the construction team on here.
I have one question that seems to have gone unanswered so far. I'm guessing is a pretty easy one, and I appreciate the answers about the trash and the alley access during construction, but bike parking racks, I don't see them on the map since Ingrid brought that up.
Yeah, Dustin, have we gotten word back from Patrick yet, done any kind of drawings with, including the bike racks, or?
Unfortunately, we have not heard back from our architect on that, as well as the exterior rendering.
We've got room over there on that, was at the east side of the building, that we're playing with, and we're kind of developing the garbage plan strategy first, then how we're going to use the rest of that room that we have available.
So potentially going to have indoor space for the
Potentially in unit if we can work something out, otherwise outside on that east side, we'll have some room to play with as well.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's been discovered that currently the municipal lots do not have bike racks. So that's something that we're talking about internally as well. And what'll happen is if the general development plan goes through and gets approved by the council, they'll be back here with a specific implementation plan. So the details of the dumpster and the bike racks will be included in that plan, as well as some other things. But definitely, those are good concerns. Any follow-up? No? That's all you got?
That's it.
All right. Anybody else have any? Commissioner Bradford?
Mine's for Attorney Rigney. It was brought up that, if, and I understand this is going through a different, I just want to address this because it came up. If they do go forward with some kind of a leasehold agreement or something, wouldn't that open the city up to providing that to any business downtown or any resident downtown to lease a space in the municipal lots?
Well, Matt thinks about it. I think that, at least initially, my intent would be to limit it to the two, the north and south lots, those are the two biggest lots, and then have discussions with the Public Safety Committee as far as what that should look like, if there's a minimum or a maximum number of lots that could be reserved as part of that discussion. So those are things that I've been kind of, brainstorming and taking notes on, because I know those are concerns.
I guess legally is what I'm worried about, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor, is if our attorney could speak to that, I'd appreciate it if that would open us up to, if we lease to one apartment complex, one business, then where does it stop? I mean, can others apply, and then could we say no? I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, no, we couldn't. So if we lease to one group, we'd have to open up leasing. And I guess I just wonder where that is legally, because I know what I'm thinking in my head, but I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, legally, the city has the ability to say yes or no on a case-by-case basis. Saying yes in one circumstance does not compel the city to say yes in other circumstances. So it's not as if it's setting a legally binding precedent. That's from a legal standpoint. I think there's another issue to consider just from the standpoint of, will it create the opportunity for people to point to this as an example where it's occurred, to make the point that it's possible or that it would be fair to treat other people similarly? Yeah, but that's not a legal argument. That's still going to be in the city's control in terms of ultimately deciding, as a matter of policy, whether it's an appropriate thing to do or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. So in the packet, we have the ordinance. And just like the last one, if you were to make a recommendation to send it to City Council, there would be 2 readings on that at the council for consideration. So at this point, I would entertain a motion for the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Robinson. Is there a second? A second by Farrell. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you for being here tonight. Item number 10 and 11 are kind of go together, and I'll just pull them up here, except for it looks like my computer froze up. If you guys want to come up and introduce this one while I try to figure out my computer.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Hello again, my name is Connor Nat with Ford Development Group. Excited to be here again to share this application for the rezoning of the subject property of multifamily at Cromwell Court here in the Kettle Park West neighborhood. The rezoning is accompanied by a conditional use to have more than one primary structure, as well as more than 12 units per structure. As you're aware, we were here several months ago for an application for a general development plan where we had requested the following exemptions, as well as the conditional use items I just mentioned, also a reduction in the rear yard setback from 50 to 25 feet, and a reduction of the landscape area from 50 to 30%. The most controversial piece of that GDP application was around the reduction in the landscape ratio from 50 to 30%. Stakeholders commented this reduction was too high density for the site. As a result of this discussion a few months back, Council deemed the GDP application would not be approved and denied the application. So we've been working diligently with our architect and our engineers to solidify the plans to come forward with a by right conventional zoning product. And we're pleased to be here and say that we were able to move forward with this project with a few changes. So I guess the main question that I would have is, why didn't we submit this the first time around? And mostly came down to timing. Since then we've been able to solidify our plans. Our GDP application had a landscape ratio of 41%. Given the preliminary nature of the plans that we had in the spring, We submitted a request for 30% to provide some flexibility as the final floor plans, stormwater, circulation were all ironed out. Within the last month, we were able to determine that the 50% LSR is achievable with our current plans. That does come with a potential reduction of up to 20% of the overall density that could have been achieved on the site. We continue to refine the site plan to meet the conventional setbacks, which we're able to meet now. The overall shape and length of the buildings have changed since that GDP application, but they're able to work within the site itself. And to make it clear, we respect your time, so by no means were we, by resubmitting, we didn't think that we'd be able to accommodate the site in the way we have, but through the comments that we've received from the Plan Commission, we think we've come forward with a better product, being able to take your feedback into account. So we feel it's an overall better product for the site, given your feedback, and we're able to maintain the pervious surface, the green space, and for additional detail, we've provided updated site plan renderings as well as 3D renderings to show how it blends well with the context of their site. With that, we can open it up to any questions.
Are there any initial questions from the commissioners? If not, I can close the meeting and open it for the public hearing. Is anybody here to speak on this at the public hearing? Hearing none, we would close the public hearing and then reopen for the business. And as Connor mentioned, there's kind of a new layout in here that is in correspondence with the standards in our ordinance. There's kind of the ground view picture of what it would look like. And then here's another one as well. So I think this, at least visually, gives you a better feel for how this kind of all blends together. And I asked the City Attorney Dragney to be here tonight to kind of help us with this process, because there's two steps. The first one would be the rezoning. And Michael, maybe you can at least cover, the purpose of the rezoning before we get into the discussion, and then Attorney Dragney can help fill in the blanks.
Sure, I think Connor summarized it well. It sounds like they heard you loud and clear, the commission and council, and they came back with standard zoning, and they're going to meet all the requirements. The emergency services, they've looked at it, and they're happy with it. I don't know if there's anything more to say. There's a couple of conditions that they're going to be requesting in the next item, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward now, I think.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Farrell?
Not really a question. I like to redo. The only thing that occurs to me, and it didn't occur previously, but looking at the 3D drawing, it jumps out at me, is it would be nice if somehow Cromwell Court could be remodeled to just a street so that people wouldn't be tempted to park in that, what is now a cul-de-sac.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
When the commissioners are done, Mayor, I have a couple.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just reviewing the packet in preparation for the meeting tonight, and I'm a little bit late to the party on this, so a couple of these items, I'm sorry to be bringing them up here at the last minute. One has to do with the discussion of park dedication and how that will be addressed here, given that there was already some land dedicated associated with the overall and original expectations for residential density. That's going to be changing with this change in zoning. It seems to me that at least before there's a final a decision made about the change in zoning, there should be some discussion and maybe even an agreement reached as to how credit for park dedication is going to be addressed here. You know, when building permits are applied for, our ordinances require payment of impact fees for parkland, and I'm concerned about having confusion and maybe a lack of being on the same page at that point about how those impact fees are going to be handled. So my first suggestion is that we consider requiring that there be an agreement as to how that's going to be handled before the zoning would be effective. I'm open to discussion on that. That may not be necessary, but based on what I've seen, it's worth considering. My second issue is that I'm looking at the future land use map on, for me at least, it's on page 13 of the materials in the packet. Can we go to that for a second? I don't know whoever's controlling that.
That would be me. Which part did you say, Matt? The future what?
The future land use map.
Okay. Is
I
that
think it's
before or after
it's
this?
a little, I think it's before you get to that. So it's before. Yeah, there you keep going up. There you go. You're going the right way. One more. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So as I look at that map, it's hard to tell, but it looks like lot 15 is currently shown as planned business on the future land use map, and lot 27, I can't tell. It looks like it's planned office. My first question is, can somebody clarify for me? I assume this is the future land use map in the current comprehensive plan.
Yeah, the lot you're talking about is MR10. I think that maybe they have the color wrong on the other piece, the other half of that parcel.
It should be multifamily planned business, right?
Yeah. So
lot 27, at least on the future land use map, it should show MR10, or it should show, because it wouldn't say MR10, it would show.
I think it's mixed use. I think it's a mixed use, and with multifamily is one of the options as part of the mixed use, I believe.
I don't see a mixed use category there on the table of future land uses.
I thought it was just multifamily, it was like a general multifamily zoning.
Yeah, I can't remember what it.
And then the red being the planned business, which matches the current hotel.
Right.
Is my understanding of that.
Yep.
Okay, so let's assume that the red, which is lot 15, is currently designated as planned business.
Correct.
In the future land use map, in the comp plan.
Yep.
And lot 27 is currently designated as multifamily.
Right.
If the idea, in order to change the zoning of the area that is currently lot 15 to MR 24, you know, it's not, it seems to me there's at least a question about whether that meets the consistency requirement under the law for, you know, a change in zoning has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I would say before we get to a final decision, we need to understand whether it's consistent with the plan to zone that lot 15 area from planned business to multifamily. Maybe there's something about our plan that we could look at and that would explain why
there is.
That meets the consistency requirement, but it's not obvious to me. Michael, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, there is some language in the code, in the comp plan that does give the Plan Commission flexibility to allow an adjacent use like this to be multifamily. We've done that in the past too. I've got that language. I can send to you.
I think we should just check that box and make sure that we've got that. So that's, and then my next issue is, and I suspect this is an easy one, if you scroll down to the exhibits that show the legal descriptions of the areas that are proposed to be rezoned, and you'll get to one that deals with I think it's lot 15. And it says it's rezoned from planned business to planned business. And I'm not sure why it's saying that. This is on page 20.
That's the piece of the parcel that will remain the hotel, because lot 15 is splitting into two pieces. That
Okay.
part that remains needs a new zoning description added to it. So although it's the same, it's a new
remaining.
parcel.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay,
gonna
so you're
remain.
it's really just describing the parcel. The zoning isn't changing.
Right.
Okay. I thought that might be the case. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, so,
Matt, did you get a chance to look at the ordinance? Because we did build something into the ordinance regarding the parkland. I didn't know if you got a chance to look
Nah.
at that, and we don't have to do it
I
right
did not
now either, but.
yeah, I've not seen that, and Michael, we can certainly look at that,
They're gonna dedicate.
you know,
Yeah.
offline.
There's some
but-
options for dedication.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the intent, Connor, was you're gonna dedicate the land, or?
Yeah. The intent was to, and we had more on this in the GDP. I thought we included that exhibit, but I have the piece that talked about it. But the plan is to expand the Tanaska Park, which is connected to the Kettle Park West neighborhood. There are a couple different options. There could either be an expansion of one parcel that would make it a wooded parcel, or expansion further west as well. I don't think, maybe it's at the end?
I think it's in this,
Oh, it is?
it's in the packet, I think.
Oh, it is, okay.
Near the
Exhibit
end.
I. There it is, yeah.
Yeah,
So
park
those are
dedication,
two different
there it is.
options,
There.
two different land ownerships. That why we have two options there, because it all depends on if we're able to work with the current landowners. So A and B were options to expand the current park. It's an expansion of 2.15 acres.
So when
Right,
would
so
that,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when would that decision have to be made?
We would do that simultaneously with the zoning. When we have the zoning approved, we would be able to dedicate the land. At that time, those two things would kind of go hand in hand.
Okay,
I don't know if
did you have
anything to
something,
add
Matt?
on that, but
Well, yeah, I guess my question is the same as yours, Mayor, about timing. So would it be, my concern is making sure that we don't find ourselves down the road with this issue not having been resolved after the zoning is approved. So are you proposing that the zoning ordinance would include a condition to be effective until this dedication takes place and is approved?
Exactly,
Is
yep. Yep.
that the idea?
Yep.
Okay, and that's the way I haven't looked at the ordinance yet, Michael, but it sounds like if that's clear in the ordinance, then that may well address that concern.
I can read this section to you.
Okay,
Rezoning shall not become effective until additional parkland has been transferred to the city of Stoughton to match the increased number of units approved. In the event additional land cannot be acquired, this common council may consider the collection of fees in lieu of dedication or the dedication of an alternate parcel.
all right, I guess my comments on the language, one, it would be nice perhaps to specify the number of additional units, unless that is absolutely clear.
It's 96. Yeah, I think the
well,
number's been identified as 96.
Well, is that the net increase?
Yeah, so Connor with a K here. Good evening, Attorney Dragney. And the parkland did come up as a very important item in not only discussing with city staff officials, but Plan Commission and council as well through the initial go about when we looked at this site. What's included in the packet as Exhibit I, which is on the screen now, is two separate alternate projects or parcels that we'd be looking to hopefully acquire and dedicate. This was done previously in the previous phase of Kettle Park West in that 4-acre parcel that we dedicated. Our hope is to do the same here, but the reason for the flexibility in language is these are third-party landowners. We're not speaking on their behalf, so we do agree that it's in the best interest of the city and Kettle Park West to acquire and dedicate those lands. But if for some reason we were unable to, that's where that flexibility in language regarding the fee in lieu came into play. Now, addressing the exact unit count, because of the increase in our previous concept and the flexibility with the 30% impervious, now to the 50% landscape surface ratio, it's going to bring that density down from originally we're looking at a max of around 117 units, I believe. I don't think we're going to be able to cap more than mid-90s, 96 units at the best, which is what's currently shown here. So the actual unit count could be based on the site plan actual unit count that is submitted, so we make sure we account for the exact amount.
Yeah, I guess my only comment is it's hard. I never like trying to draft ordinance language on the fly based on verbal back and forth. So I would just state that, you know, I would like to have an opportunity to make sure that we can make sure that language is very clear about how we're dealing with the, you know, when that condition would be satisfied, because the zoning wouldn't be effective until that condition is satisfied. And, you know, that's just my thing as a lawyer. I want to make sure the language is super clear.
Sure, and that makes sense to us. Having a resolution prior to any recordation of a CSM would make sense.
Well, and I would say before the action on the zoning ordinance, we might want to tweak that language before the council adopts the ordinance.
Sure.
So what are you suggesting we need for tonight, Matt? We have the ordinance. Do we need to do anything with that before we send it on to council?
Well, I mean, the Plan Commission role is to recommend what, you know, that the zoning change be approved or not approved. I don't think the Plan Commission has to get into the nitty-gritty of the park dedication language. We can do that between tonight's meeting, assuming the Plan Commission recommends approval. I mean, we could deal with the detailed language before the next meeting. Are you planning on this for next week? Is that?
I think that's the hopes.
Okay.
So
Well,
you
we'll
have 8 days,
Yeah.
and the clock is
Yep.
ticking.
We'll have to get Rick on it because I'm going to be leaving town on Wednesday. But I would ask Michael to work with Rick on just making sure that language is super tight. One reason I'm sensitive to this is I had another development in another community with a similar situation. And there was a change in zoning and a change in density, and there had been prior dedications and agreement and kind of high-level agreements about future dedications. And when the building permit application time came for the residential units, there was not a meeting of the mind at that point as to how the credit would work, and it was not fun. So I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page.
All right.
So I'll ask Rick to work with you, Michael, on that park dedication language.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Appreciate you jumping all over that today, man. I know it was kind of late notice, but glad you were able to do it. Any other questions from commissioners? So we do have the ordinance in here, and I'll zip back to it here for consideration. At this point, I would entertain a motion on the ordinance.
I'll make the motion to advance it forward.
Motion by Schumacher, is there a second? Second by Bradford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, and then the next item is the conditional use permit. And I'll pull that one up. So conditional use permit is for the same property. And this one, we also have a need for a public hearing at some point. But before we get into that, I'd ask Matt to join us specifically for this item, because we all know that conditional use permits have changed over the last few years. And I wanted to, be sensitive to those changes as it relates to this project. Is there anything right off the bat, Matt, you want to get into, or?
Yeah, I guess I would just remind, the members of the Plan Commission who've heard me talk about conditional use permits before, and if you haven't, I'll just summarize again. So the decision to change the zoning is a legislative decision where you have broad discretion to do what you think is right for the community based on a very broad range of considerations. Once the zoning change is approved, and now you're moving into different kinds of decisions, such as here, a request for a conditional use approval. And that kind of decision is no longer just a broad discretionary decision where you have the ability to exercise broad discretion. Instead, it's what I call and what we lawyers call a quasi-judicial decision, where the ordinance says that what they're asking for here is something that is allowable as a conditional use, meaning they need your approval, but that approval needs to be based strictly on the standards in the ordinance that govern that decision and has to be supported by substantial evidence. So the decision to approve it or to deny it has to be based on substantial evidence. Now, I have not, well, I guess if this is before you tonight, you'll have to understand what is the evidence that supports either the approval or denial of the request, and how does that evidence apply to the standard in your ordinance, and that's that would be the task before you. And here you're also being asked to act on the conditional use approval before the zoning change is even made. So obviously, any approval would need to be conditioned upon, of course, the zoning itself being ultimately changed by the city council. That's all I can say at this point.
All right. Any questions about that? All right. Here none. And as far as the actual application for the conditional use permit, anything you guys want to go through?
The only thing that I wanted to point it out, and maybe you had this written down to discuss, but was having the two conditions on there. So everything else I think we covered.
Multiple buildings on the lot was one part of it, and the other part was having more than 12 units per building. Yep.
So those would be two conditions that we would put on this.
Yeah, that would
and as well as it would be conditioned upon approval of the zoning.
Both of those are conditional uses.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Anything before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none. Close the regular meeting. Open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak at the public hearing? Hearing none. We'll close that. Reopen for business. So what we have is we have a memo from Rodney on the conditional use, and then we have the resolution, and we're asking that we forward this with those two conditions, the multiple buildings and the 12 units per building, and it be contingent upon the zoning. I would entertain a motion to do so. It's item number 11.
This is Matt. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm looking at the packet materials relating to the conditional use permit, and it looks like it's just the same application that was submitted for the rezone. Is there something different for the conditional use that I'm not seeing?
Do you see the resolution on the screen?
Yeah, though I see that, but I don't see an application from Forward Development Group that includes any information that's different from the rezone.
All right, Connor's going to come up and address that.
Application that details the application for conditional use and outlines the questions that are organized in the application itself. So it'd be on page 7.
Page 7?
Correct, yep.
Okay, hold on, I go to page 7 here. See what-
It's page 7 of our application, not the overall packet. Sorry, didn't clarify.
Oh, all right.
Stop me when I find it right here. There's the application.
Okay, page 7, let's see.
Right here. See it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see it. I can't find that. I'm having a hard time finding that in the. Can you tell me what page that's in our packet?
It's below the checklist that Michael fills out, the application. So when it goes public hearing and then their application, it's right below the application.
Is he on item 11?
You're on item 11. You're not on the zoning. It was a separate, separate.
Well, I just clicked on the city's website here. I clicked on the link for the conditional use info.
Oh,
Yeah,
you got to go to the packet.
you should go to the packet if you can download that. It'll be in there.
Oh, okay.
And then in the packet, there was an item, number 10 was for the rezoning, and then number 11 is for the conditional use. And it's about, I don't know, half a dozen pages or so down.
I can see it's there, so I'll take a look.
All right. So while you're looking that up, I'm still entertaining the motion to send this on to council. Somebody willing to make the motion? All right. Motion by Farrell. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second, just keep it going.
All right. Second by Schumacher. Were you able to find it, Matt?
Yeah, I'm having trouble opening it, but that's all right. I can see it's there, and it's really up to the Plan Commission members to determine whether they're satisfied that the information that they have supports the decision.
Are there any questions from commissioners regarding the conditional use? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Two noes? Okay. The motion does carry. All right, thanks for being here tonight. So, council is next week. So, and then Rodney will be back tomorrow. If you have any questions or comments for him, feel free to reach out to him or Michael. And then Rick Matthews is going to work with Attorney Dragney to get the other document ready. All right, thank you. You bet. All right, next item, number 12, is a specific implementation plan for Champion Express Car Wash at 2400 State Highway 138. And I'll pull this up. And welcome to Stoughton. I don't know if we've met.
No, I've come a long ways. I've traveled 1,800 miles to get here. On the plane ride to get here, we had a medical emergency where we left the airport and we had to turn around and go back and drop this girl off that was having a seizure. She was sitting next to a brain surgeon, of all people, and he realized that she was having a seizure. Probably nobody else would have. And got a hold of the stewardess. Stewardess said, "Hey, we got to turn this around." And they came back, so I doubled my miles. So I'm Kurt Anderson. I'm with Priority Engineering. I'm the president. Tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about Champion Express Car Wash. We're bringing one to town. We're pretty excited to be here. Alan Kirchhoff is actually online somewhere in this meeting. So if we have any real specific questions about the company or any of the operational side of things, he is the best guy to answer. I'm a civil engineer. Now, I work with the crazy architects and landscape architects and structural engineers, so I know a little bit about everything. But I don't know the great details of everything, so I'll start with that. Champion Express is a family-owned car wash company. They have car washes in Iowa, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and they're trying their best to get into Wisconsin. We have about 10 sites right now that we're actively looking at. This particular site is at 2400 State Highway 138, so it's be the northwest corner of 138 and 51. So we can go to the next slide if you want to. I was just going to brush through the core values. It's the one just before that one. There you go. You got it. So these are the core values of Champion Express: excellence, community, hard work, different stewardship. I did want to focus in on community because they're coming to your town. They're going to participate in your community, and it's from the relationships. It's through getting in with your churches, your organizations, fundraising. This is going to be a very good company for your community. Let me introduce the team. Be the next slide. Thank you. I'm Kurt Anderson. I'm with Priority Engineering. Health Design is going to be our architect on the project. 7B Building and Development is Alan Kirchhoff. He'll be your developer. And the sister company of 7B is Champion Express Car Wash. And then Kimley Horn was nice enough to put together a nice landscape plan for you guys. Next slide. Again, we feel like this is going to be a positive development for the community. I'm not going to go through every one of these things, but I think one of the things I heard in the pre-app was there's big concerns relative to green, if we can. So I will tell you, car washes use a lot of water. So we have spent a lot of money and invested in technology relative to reuse. So 17 gallons of water go into washing a car. We try to use at least 12 gallons of that 17 through our reuse system. It goes through the reuse system, and then once sediment and has built up, we go in and actually vacuum out that I'll call it a septic tank of all things. They dig it out, or they vacuum it out, and then they remove it on and take it somewhere on site. The other part of this is from a stormwater standpoint, we were lucky enough to tap into a regional underground retention basin, meaning it doesn't have an outlet. It's infiltrating back into the soil. We're recharging the groundwater. So those are two very big positive things that I heard from, at least from Michael, saying we want to see it. So I just wanted to promote that. Next slide. Again, this is just kind of an aerial where we're at. This is Kettle Park West, and the northwest corner is currently under development right now. So this is kind of the last piece that's left over at this corner. Next slide. Just the cover sheet and the players that we're on. Next slide. This is the site plan. It's got a nice little color rendering by the architect that put together. He did go a little bit farther to the north with the pavement replacement. We're not going that far, but the plan on the right side, you'll see about a 100-foot queuing lane, 2 lanes that are going to be stacked up. Those will be automated pay stations that you would go through. It tapers back down to 1 lane, and then you would enter into the tunnel from the south. It's a 100-foot tunnel, and then exits on the north side. That's a pretty large radius to make that turn to get it back into the private drive aisle. And then you have the opportunity either to go in and dry off your car if you want to wipe it down some more, or what most people do is use the automated vacuums that are going to be in. All the vacuums will be enclosed, so the sound is very much reduced. Next slide. Again, these are the materials. I know we're going to be looking for the Planning Commission to look at the materials that we're proposing here. I was on site today looking at the Dunkin' Donuts, the Walmart that are in close proximity. We are doing a very similar split CMU unit at the bottom. I'll call it to the belt level, and then I call it a hardy plank board. they call it something else on here, but it's a horizontal board. But this is what the finished product will look like as far as the colors and the materials. If we want to spend more time on this, let me know. I wanted this slide in here specifically so you could see what they were proposing. Next slide. This is the landscape plan. Again, this is a landscape plan that we felt comfortable that would enhance the property, make it look nice, and work with the car wash that we're proposing. I think it's the last slide. Yeah, so I think everybody's going to ask questions about maybe some of the operational side. Traditionally, summer hours, they're 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, weather does dictate some of their schedule. Winter hours are typically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There'll be fully uniformed staff with an on-site manager that has an assistant manager. So we're looking at 2 to 4 attendees at the car wash when it's open. We feel like this is an excellent opportunity for maybe some of the younger adults here, high school students, maybe first-year college students who needed a job. No loitering, no noise permitted, no after-hours activity, and again, the ownership is committed to this and committed to your community to come here and build a car wash. That's all I have. I have spoken to Michael, Stacy, and Jill Weiss quite a bit. We kind of went some back and forth on some items, but they've been very great. Your staff has been great to work with. With that, I'll leave it open for anybody who has any questions for me. Or again, Alan is online that can help also.
All right, thank you. Any initial thoughts or questions? Little known fact, I was in this business for 8 years, so I learned a ton about water reclamation and maintenance. And it's a very interesting business, and I'm excited to hear what new technologies there is since I've been in this business, and how you can save water, because I know that going to a car wash saves more water than having people do it in their driveways, and it's better for the environment. You don't have that water going right into storm water, so these are good things. No initial questions. Now, on this one here, Michael, so we're going for a specific implementation plan. I think that for this area, the general development plan was approved as part of the overarching approval process. Is that, am I getting that right?
Right. The general development plan kind of had it built in. The drive-through establishments were already approved up front. So this is just a specific implementation plan to finish out this. I think there's maybe one more small lot on this overall lot. It's, yeah, they're nodding.
Yeah, they're part of Forward Development Group.
Yeah.
What's your timetable?
Probably construction 2024 would be my guess.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
The only thing I was wondering about would be like saturation of that product type in that area. You've got Quick Trip 1 with one, Quick Trip 2 with one, and then you've got one on Main Street, and this would add a fourth one in a mile radius.
Saturation as far as car washes? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
They've done their due diligence on. I know there's one probably a block over that's connected to the gas station, but this is fully automated. You're buying a yearly subscription. You can go as many times as you want. It's a different different set of car wash than what's across the street.
Yeah. It's a different market, and haven't been in it. I mean, the one that I managed, I mean, we could run through 100 cars an hour, and you're not going to get that in a regular, you know, automatic where you drive in. This one here is it conveyorized?
Correct.
Yeah, so it pulls the cars through, and it's like one after another as close as you can get them, and they can really crank out the numbers.
Yeah, I think we can do one every 30 seconds, but they prefer to do it one every minute. But they can go as fast as 30 seconds.
Any other questions?
I just got one. You know, a concern.
Where the bike racks?
No, it's okay. Not recommended to take your bicycle through a car wash. People have done it. There's a note in here from Rodney and Michael. They're just a little concern about I guess the stacking with the drive-through and the other business that's there at the initial driveway to access this site. I guess I've got a little concern about backup and the roundabout, and since we had a situation, whenever that was, 3 years ago, where there was a situation with cars stacking back to the roundabout, I believe. So I guess I just have a concern about that.
Okay. There's two answers to that. Number one, if you're stacked behind, 30 cars, you're going to take your car wash business somewhere else. Secondly, we can speed it up. The attendants are there. They're supposed to be taking inventory, and we've got over 100 feet of stacking for two sets of cars, 2 lanes. And we feel like there's enough adequate stacking for them to not impact that road at all.
I don't know. I think my
It
bigger
seemed-
concern
yeah.
is the Dunkin' that's there, and then blocking access for you guys to your facility if something happens there, because I don't know if there's backup at the Dunkin', people try to swing around that traffic. What does that create? As far as the overall picture, access to the site.
Seems like that is lessened, I think, over time. People are starting to go back inside, and I haven't seen it as bad as it was. It may be, but I haven't seen it.
I just wanted to bring that up because make sure we're all aware.
Especially when Popeyes opens too.
Yeah.
Because that'll be all within that area.
One-stop shop. Coffee, car washing, and 2 chickens.
Yep. It's entertainment while you're going through.
Yeah. You know what the number one reason people get their car wash is?
Spilling chicken and they're dirty.
Not because it's dirty, it makes them feel good. It's true. Had to throw that in there. Any other questions or comments?
If we track people, we can find ones with guilty consciences.
Oh, man.
People like shiny things.
Yeah.
Shiny cars.
All right. So we appreciate you being here. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the specific implementation plan. Motion by Majewski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schumacher. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Excellent. Thank you. Hope you have a less dramatic trip back. All right. All right. Item number 13, extraterritorial jurisdiction land division at 2355 Leslie Road, town of Dunkirk. There's a resolution in there. There's application in there, and I'm looking for the map. What are they trying to do on this one, Michael?
Yeah, it's just a simple request to separate the ag land from the existing farm buildings. And it's quite a ways out. It's just on the edge of our extraterritorial, so a mile and a half out.
All right. Any questions on this one? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for recommendation to council.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Second by Bradford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Future agenda items, anything you have, Michael?
The Stoughton Trailers CSM will come back. I think we got some final plats coming. Preliminary condo plat. That's about it.
All right, anything from commissioners? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schumacher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Have a good night.